Well, he's done it again, but not just by himself this time. It's with his son. I'm talking about Josh McDowell and Sean McDowell. There you see it on the screen. Look at this book. It's The Beauty of Intolerance. This is certainly going to create a whole lot of conversation in the kingdom of God. And Josh McDowell once again joins us on 100 Huntley Street and once again brings us data and information that creates some tremors. Welcome back.
You know, it's a brand new book, so you always start out at the top and then you work down. And for me, that's 100 Huntley Street.
Oh, thank you so much. It's just great to see you. Great to have you
Good to be back.
Well, this one is a doozy. It's a whopper. The Beauty of Intolerance, Setting a Generation Free to Know Truth and Love. And I mean, you go right at it. You just put a dagger in the heart of this whole idea that tolerance is the most acceptable, wonderful thing. It's the highest form of value in our culture and society. But you say, no.
Yeah.
So let's talk about this book.
Yeah. Well, you know, the number one virtue in almost every culture in the world now is tolerance. And I personally think the new tolerance is evil. I would never teach my children to be tolerant. Now, I better give a little background. You see, most of your listeners right now, when you say tolerance, they're thinking of one thing. But the word has gone through a total shift, and the concept, whenever you hear the word tolerance now in a religious environment, economic, political, cultural, educational environment, this is what the word tolerance means. It means all values, all lifestyles, all claims to truth, all beliefs are equal. And if you say there's a belief, a value, a claim to truth that is greater or lesser than another or a lifestyle, then you are labeled being a bigot and intolerant. You see, it's totally changed. So when you say to someone, well, you need to be tolerant of that individual, what it means in the majority of the culture's mind is, then you need to say that their beliefs, their value, their lifestyle, their claim to truth is equal to your own, and you must rejoice in that, or you are intolerant.
And are marginalized immediately and told to sit down and shut up.
Years ago, a professor said to me, it was at Kent State University, he said, you know, the way we're going to defeat Christianity is we're going to marginalize it through tolerance. And that's kind of what has happened.
Yeah.
I asked my son once, I said, Sean, is there anything they've taught you at school? He was about 15 years old. That's an absolute. That is true for everyone, no question about it. He said, yeah. I said, what is it? He said, tolerance. I said, let me ask a question. Are you being taught to tolerate the tolerable and given freedom to be intolerant of the intolerant? He said, yeah, Dad. My daughter in a Christian school. She was about 16. I said, Katie, what is the biggest name you fear to be called? Oh, she said, to be intolerant. And I thought, whoa, when you do not agree, they're afraid of being labeled that I don't agree with everyone, that their beliefs, their value, their truth, their lifestyle is equal to everything else. So I did a t-shirt. I wish I had it here to show you. It says, intolerance is a beautiful idea. People get upset. They look at me, tighten up, says, why are you wearing that shirt? And I turn around.
The back of the t-shirt.
And the back of the t-shirt says, isn't it wonderful that Nelson Mandela was intolerant of apartheid? Martin Luther King Jr. was intolerant of racism. Mother Teresa was intolerant of poverty. Bono is intolerant of AIDS. And everybody goes, oh, I was in a Chick-fil-A restaurant, and this couple, packed out, yells across the restaurant, hey, mister, what's in the back of your t-shirt? And everybody looked. I turned around, and you could feel the air go right out of his tires. And before I left, he yelled out, where can I get one of those? You see, most people don't think it through.
So, Josh, where did it begin with your kids? Did it begin in conversations with your son, Sean, who is a fabulous communicator and emerging leader in his own right? Where did this idea of this book, where was it birthed? How did it come together?
It was birthed 30 years ago.
Wow.
30, 40 years ago, in researching out truth, I saw that, and I don't have time to go into here, how progression of history epistemologically, which means the study of truth. What is truth and where does it come from? Was going through a total change, a shift. And was going from truth, residing for hundreds and hundreds of years in a personal creator God, all truth. And man responded to that truth, to where truth resided within man. And so and I thought, if this shift is taking place, and it's been about 85 years to 100 years or more that it's built up, I said, we're in trouble. And that's where the seed of the book. And then as I started raising my own children, they got into school, we discussed what they're, I said, oh my gosh, I have got to help parents. Because in 1 Kings 3:6-9, Solomon prayed, said, give me wisdom as a king to discern the difference between good and evil. Tolerance blurs that line. And we've got to raise our children to discern good from evil.
You talk about in this book two types of tolerances, for grammar's sake. There is traditional tolerance and then cultural tolerance. Traditional tolerance would have more positive aspects, would it not, Josh?
Oh, yes.
That's where there's seeing people kindly and fairly and equally.
I admire you, I appreciate you, you're of great value, but I disagree with what you believe.
Mm-hmm. That's
traditional tolerance.
And has occurred for years and years and years and years. But then you move to cultural tolerance, and something has been inverted here. Explain to us what that is.
What's been inverted, it's gone from, we always separated the person from the act. I love you, but I don't agree with you in this. And I'm saying what you do is wrong, but I love you as a person, you're of great value. Now, with this shift epistemologically of the meaning of truth, it's gone to where your actions are who you are. So when you say the thing, I love you, but I hate the sin, we think that's so wonderful. To the culture around, that's evil. Because you can't separate the individual from the act. And this is why you have to attribute all good to the individual, and whatever they do is good. Why? Because they chose to do it.
And if you raise any question of opposition or even justification for how they are acting, you are intolerant.
That's right.
You're a bigot.
And a bigot, yes.
Yeah.
And this is why in raising my children, I had to teach them the difference between love and tolerance. I refuse to raise my children with tolerance. I think it's evil. I think when you tolerate someone, you diminish their value. When you love someone, you augment their value as created in the image of God with infinite value, dignity, and worth. And so here's one of the biggest problems. How do you deal? Everything down, say, from any cultural problem might go against the scriptures, etc. And we just had a big one recently throughout the world on marriage, is how do you raise your children, and I deal with this in there, to render unto Caesar what is Caesar's, your taxes, etc. Render unto God what is God's. And this means, an illustration, Paul and others were in prison, and they were forbidden to testify about God or to give any witness anything. And they said, we must obey God and not man. In other words, this is not what we owe Caesar. This is what we owe God. And so we need to raise our children how to discern that of what belongs to God, what belongs to Caesar, with a conviction, well, why is that true?
We are in suburban Atlanta at Eastside Baptist Church, a partner ministry of 100 Huntley Street in Marietta, Georgia. Just down the road in Atlanta, past few years, there was a fire chief in the city of Atlanta. You write about him in the book. And he was tolerant of gays in the workforce and in his department, had never been an issue in his leadership. But when he wrote a biography and something about his leadership philosophies or his worldview, he had some things to say that he thought that marriage was between a man and a woman. He defended traditional marriage. Didn't go on the attack, but defended traditional marriage. He paid a price for that. The mayor of the city, who's still in office as we record this, really went after him, and so did the media. There's a man who simply, in his private life, his worldview, expressed it, put it in a book publicly, yes, but in his own professional day-to-day, there was no fault against him for how he had treated gay people. Tremendous example as to how you can be told to shut up and sit down.
This comes up with another word that coincides with tolerance: respect. Using the meaning of respect today and the cultural meaning, I would never teach my children to be respectful.
Interesting.
Doesn't that sound horrible? But why? When you understand, and I documented all this right from the university pros down, when you use the word respect today, the connotation is when I say I respect you, it means I hold in the same high esteem your values, your beliefs, your lifestyle, your claims to truth as much as I hold my own. And if I don't, I'm being disrespectful and intolerant. So see what the fire chief did? He said, this is my view, meaning in contrast with others, this is superior. Well, that's being disrespectful and intolerant.
Tolerant.
See, because you're not, to be tolerant, you must rejoice in the other's position as much as you rejoice in your own, or you're intolerant. So if you have a worldview that would say there's a value, a belief, a lifestyle, a claim to truth that's greater or lesser than another, you're disrespectful and intolerant.
When we talk in our next segment, let's talk about those that get upset with those who disagree with them and call those who are in disagreement intolerant, but then they themselves are intolerant in their view of that person and that view. We're going to talk more about that. Josh McDowell and his son Sean have written this book. It's called The Beauty of Intolerance, the subtitle, Setting a Generation Free to Know Truth and Love. It's a tremendous book. It's available in our e-store. We'd love for you to get it. Josh McDowell, what a powerful voice through the decades. And we've got him right here with us for this and more editions of 100 Huntley Street.